let's kick off with the ultimate question. Are new old stock tubes truly better than modern production tubes? And the short, non-committal answer, depending on tube's price and taste, yes-ish. But don't bet the farm on it. So if anyone thinks there's a black and white answer to this question, new stock versus current tubes, please leave a comment. I'll pause the video right now and put in the comments, then see if your answer matches my findings. Is new old stock always better? So recently, PSVane, Ray Tubes, and Cryotone sent over their vacuum tubes for review. Now, obviously they were hoping for a thumbs up. While not a tube expert, I've clocked plenty of hours with a variety of tube, aided by my audio buddies, Mr. Kanta and Mr. Vintage, man, whose tube collections would make most enthusiasts jealous. Hundreds, maybe thousands of new old stock. Let me see if I can find a photo and I'll put it up, okay? Or video or something. So, how to make a tube review video enjoyable? After all, unless you're shopping for tubes, why would you bother watching a video about them? So, upon looking at the tubes sent by these three companies, I realized they all have 6SN7 or CV181 tubes. So by the way, when I mention 6SN7 or CV181 in this video, treat them as interchangeable. That's pretty much the same. Now these kind of tubes are usually used in in the preamp stage. It is one of my favorite tubes. Now, although you might have microphonic issues, meaning you hear something, you start tapping on the tubes, you'll hear something in the speaker. But the sound quality is very good. Okay, so I phoned Mr. Kanta. Hey man, got any holy grail new old stock 6SN7 tubes for comparison? I'd like to know if what I have in my hand can challenge his best 6SN7 new old stock tube. Guess what? He did. Mullard CV181 from Great Britain. About 800 bucks US. Man, 800 bucks US for a pair of tubes from my parents' generation. Man, some of these new old stock are like Pokemon cards, where they get bid up to crazy prices. So I always have this question, with advances in technology, manufacturing, why can't today's tube surpass new old stock? I even asked some tube manufacturers this question, and everyone has their own answer or excuses. There is no way for me to verify anything. So for instance, they said, in the past, if a tube didn't measure well, it would be discarded. Nowadays, due to the low profit margin, they sell it at a lower price instead of trashing it. Now, truth or audiophile, urban legend, hard to say. Share your tube conspiracy theories in the comments. So, I went with Mr. Kanta to a friend's place for a relaxed, not also scientific shootout using a Boyuurange A50. It's a 300B amp. Well, and some unknown speakers. No blindfolds, no fancy room treatments, no lab coats, just for fun. So please take our conclusion, with a grain of salt. You know what I mean, right? So introducing the contenders. In the left corner, we have the modern tubes. The first one was PSVane Horizon CV181. So I took a look on Amazon. They're about 120 bucks US a pair. Next, Cryotone 6SN7, 340 bucks a pair. And the most expensive, Ray Tubes, that's the Reserve series. They have different series. 6SN7, 550 bucks for a matching pair. Now, on the right corner, we have the new old stock, the famous Mullard CV181, the one that's made in Great Britain, not the one that's made in Russia these days. On a good day on eBay, you might get them for 700 USD. On a bad day, maybe 800 bucks. Next, RCA 6SN7 new stock, made in the USA, costing about, on the used market, 120 bucks. Okay, so round one. RCA new stock, the one that's 120 bucks. We use the RCA as our baseline. So the RCA in the 300B amp was great because it brought out the 300B flavor. See, for me, a 300B amp should sound romantic, with minimal hard edges, a thick mid-range, and no tape bass, making it sound musical. So the presentation was simple, like a candlelit dinner, not a fireworks show. So let me explain, okay? I once had a Sonos favorite toy speaker. So when I listened to it, it sounds calm. Nothing really stands out and catch my attention. Cymbals decay does not extend to infinity and beyond. Bass doesn't rumble and shake my windows. And I cannot hear the vibration on the drum skin. Yet, it was very enjoyable to listen to. No extended treble that bleeds my ear. Very musical. So, in contrast, when I put my focal speakers in, I'm blown away by how clear the top end is. I can hear the audience cough in a live recording, as well as all the instruments fighting for attention. This is great if you want to be impressed, but it's not as relaxing to listen as the Sonos Faber toy. So this is what I call a firework presentation. I tend to classify things. So the RCA Neo stock has a more musical presentation, and these tubes, yeah, they really enhance the 300B amp strength. So out of all the tubes I've tried that day, it's the best value if you're looking for a romantic mid-range with this 300B amp. Okay, so this is our baseline. So now first we put the PSVane Horizon. So I'm embarrassed to admit, I actually had the Horizon at my place for a while. I was one of the first to get it. Now I'm like the last to talk about it. So these Horizon tubes were introduced almost 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, 2 years. So with the Horizon tubes taking the place of the RCA, the change is drastic. You get more air, more clarity, tighter bass, more dynamic, more precise lines, and a bit more forward mid-range. So all these characteristics are consistent with my experience with their other Horizon tubes, such as KT88, 12AT7, 12AX7, and yada yada. And I can see why YouTubers were impressed by this series. The change is not subtle. It is almost like adding an equalizer to your system, just like boost all the frequencies. So, of course, please, now keep in mind this is relative to the tubes I've tested against that day. So you might get them and not feel the same because it's relative to your tubes. So with the PSVane Horizon, the presentation becomes more exciting, sounds more modern, and is closer to what I call, now the firework presentation. Now some of you might be, oh my gosh, man, I'm gonna rush out and get them so I can level up my system. Hold on. So Mr. Cantor and I noticed the same problem. This 300B amp now sounds more like a KT88 tube amp. Sure, it's faster, more dynamic, tighter with a more forward mid-range, but I lost the romantic 300B mid-range. So, is this an upgrade? The answer is, it does not matter. If you understand that the Horizon series has these characteristics, you would use it as a tool to balance your system. For example, if your system needs a bit more bite, more dynamic, you'll get this. Let's say you're getting older, like me, and you can't hear the high frequencies really well, or if your system sounds too laid back, for instance, like you have Wafdale speakers, which are known to be very smooth on the top end, guess what? You might consider adding these Horizon tubes to balance it out, right? So if your tube amp sounds slow and lack punch, well, consider trying these Horizon tubes. They can make your system sound faster. So this might be the perfect tube for you, provided you understand what you are getting. So, one thing to note is that, it won't sound as natural as compared to the other tubes I tried that day. So, compared to the other tubes I tried that day, Horizon sounded the most different. Have you ever seen a family where like 3 siblings look similar and then you got one that looks completely different? Yeah, this is how I feel about the Horizon tubes. Completely different compared to the rest of the tubes. Okay, Cryotone. Out of all my audio buddies, Loic, who runs a channel called High 5K, loves these Cryotone tubes to death. While my other audio buddy, Mr. Cantor, thinks these Cryotone tubes are, okay. He was the one I asked, Mr. Cantor, was the one that I borrowed the Mullard tubes from, and given that he had heard both the Mullard and Cryotone at his place, he was so confident that the Mullard tubes would destroy the Cryotone tubes. Guess what? So the moment we put in the Cryotone tubes, it was clear, okay, this is next level upgraded performance compared to the Horizon. Well, it's a lot more expensive. So with drums, now you can hear the texture, the vibration of the drum skin. It had more resolution. The soundstage is deeper and wider with a darker background, more 3D, and most importantly, the voice sounded natural again. So once again, the 300B has regained its romantic sound. So Mr. Kanta and I were silent for a moment, and finally Mr. Kanta spoke, saying, wow, it sounded way better than what you heard in his system. So the Cryotone performance was so good that he was no longer sure his Mullard tubes, which cost an arm and a leg, could beat it. So for Mr. Kanta, if we put the Mullard tubes aside, it was the best tube of the day, the Cryotones. Now Cryotone has sent me many other tubes to try, and depending on where I use them, they can be okay, very good, to they can be outstanding. What I meant is if I upgrade my tube amp A with EL84, it sounded okay, but if I take the same tube and put it in my tube amp B, it can sound outstanding. In that sense, Ray tubes are more consistent, the other ones, right, the Ray tubes. Every time when I put in, I notice, okay, it's an overall improvement. Loic theory is that Cryotone tubes are linear. They don't color the sound. So if your amp is good, adding a Cryotone tube will just make it sound good. And if your amp is wow, it will sound wow. So maybe that's why the Cryotone reacts differently. So audiophile and their crazy and scientific theories. So for those of you who have never heard of Cryotone, they're a company from Texas, USA. Now I wish there were a bit more info on their website because it is fascinating what they do with their tubes. So in short, their tubes undergo cryogenic freezing treatment, which involves deep freezing them. So, and this results in a sonic change and that aims to improve the sound quality. So their goal is to create a tube with no coloration. Cryotone told me, unlike other companies, it has its own secret sauce in the whole cryo treatment process. And Loic told me that they're so neutral that some mastering studio uses them because of their linearity and lack of noise. Now this all sounds like technology from Area 51, and I'm not smart enough to even understand it. Okay, I thought that once you freeze something, if you revert to its original state, when it unfreezes, you know, it goes back to how it was. But I guess not. Deep freeze changed something permanently. So also, Cryotone only chooses the best of the batch for the cold shower. So the starting point is already the best of the best. So one of my Galion TS 34 tube amp client once wrote to me, hey Thomas, man, you have to try these Cryotone. Not only do they sound amazing, they run strangely cooler than other tubes. How's that possible? So when I got those Cryotone tubes, I used my measuring gun to check the temperature, and yeah, they do run a lot cooler. Now that's really surprising. All right, next, the Holy Grail Mullard new stock. With the surprising performance of the Cryotone, now Mr. Kanta was a bit nervous. He was not so sure the crown jewel 6SN7 Mullard new stock, which costs $700-800 US, would destroy the Cryotone. Okay, now he's not sure anymore, right? So we listened to one song of the Mullards, and once again we were silent because we couldn't really tell if it was better than the Cryotone or not. We actually needed a few minutes to compose our thoughts. So the Mullard is a simpler presentation, while the Cryotone was more exciting. The mid-range of the Mullard tube was a bit more warmer and realistic. So is this due to us subconsciously giving the Mullard a few extra points because of our bias? You know, more expensive should be better, newer stock should be better. I don't know. My brother, who isn't an audiophile, was there, and he said, man, I should blind test you guys because, you know, all these tubes sound good to me. Now, okay, I am confident in my ability to pass a blind test between the Horizon and either the Cryotone, the Mullard, or the Ray tubes. But I'm less sure about distinguishing between, let's say, the Cryotone, Mullard, and Ray tubes in a blind test. What I can say with certainty is that the voice was seductive with these Mullard. Since not every instrument is fighting for my attention, so it's not that firework presentation. The presentation was musical and it had a hint of vintage flavor. So the bass is not like super tight, right? So in that sense, I like that for a 300B setup. Now regarding the rest of the characteristic, just like the Cryotone, the Mullard has an expansive soundstage, transparent, very transparent, dark background, and excellent instrument separation. It's not as clean as the Cryotone, which can be either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what you're looking for. The top end is smoother. Incredibly, a tube made between like 1940 and 1950 can outshine many tubes on today's market, despite all the technological advancement. So in short, they're musical and the mid-range is to die for. The cons, high price and no warranty. Alright, final round. So now we move to the Ray tubes. Okay, let me tell you a story. So one day I messaged Mr. Cantor and I told him, hey man, Ray tubes asked me to review their tubes. After telling him the price, he said, WTF? At that price, I would get new stock. I told him there's a 1-year warranty on these tubes. Well, new stocks have none. I said at that price that they're asking, they must be worth listening to. After all, they'll go bankrupt if they're not good. However, Mr. Cantor said, yeah, there's no way these Ray tubes can sound as good as new stock. So against his advice, I asked Ray tubes, all right, send them to me. And I gave it to Mr. Cantor to evaluate them. Like, I didn't really even spend too much time with the Ray tubes. I just gave it to him. And he looked down on them. And it took a while for him to bother to take it out of the box to listen to. Now, I can understand that because he has spent so much time with new stock and modern tubes that for him, you know what, new stock always wins when we factor in the price. So imagine my surprise when he told me a few weeks later that these Ray tubes are as good as his new stock. He compared them to the legendary RCA 5692 tubes, which, is 6S and 7. And the secret of these RCA tubes is that they need to measure very good to sound good. These tubes, if you can find them, go for about $240 a pair. Man, I was feeling triumphant when you told me the Ray tubes were good. See, I told you so. So over the last few months, Mr. Cantor also had the opportunity to listen to various Ray tubes, including 12AX7 at my home, and he was really impressed. So that is why Mr. Cantor now this time was so sure that Ray tubes will beat the Cryotone tubes. Well, the Ray tubes in this specific system were smoother in the mid-range than the Cryotone. Everything else, soundstage, dark background, dynamics, and instrument separation, was comparable. The Ray tubes had a slightly more laid-back presentation, easy to listen to, and impossible to get listening fatigue with this setup, the 300B amp. It was terrific. And yeah, Mr. Cantor, he preferred the Cryotone because he prefers a more exciting sound. Now keep in mind he has focal speakers with only Siltech cables, so he tends to favor a more analytical presentation over a more musical presentation. So if you prefer a more relaxed listening experience, the Ray tubes are the choice for you. The mid-range, I'll still give it to the Mullard. The rest, I would say on par. Maybe some stuff are better than the Mullards, and some not as good as the Mullard. They're really neck to neck. Now, Ray tubes also take the top 1% or 2% of each batch. That means that they reject 98% from the production line, so you are truly getting the best of the best. Do they warrant their asking price? If you're part of a group of people who would even consider Ray tubes, it means that your main priority is sound and cost is secondary. Also, you'll likely try a lot of tubes already and understand that although tube rolling makes a difference, it is within reason. For that group of people, many of you will be satisfied with these Ray tubes. Alright, so let's end the video at this point. Now, although I sell Ray tubes on my website, the Galion website, both Cryotone and Ray tubes deserve your attention. Tube rolling is like playing with seasoning when cooking. There's no absolute, just what tickles your taste bud. Very soon, I'll be launching a Galion 4-watt tube integrated amp that will use two EL84 and two 12AX7. So during my R&D period, I acquired all the EL84s on the planet as well as 12AX7 to see which one sounded the best with this little amp. And the final version would be Mullard, just because of the sound versus price. However, if price was not an issue, The best sound I was able to achieve was using two 12AX7 Ray tubes and two EL84 Cryotone tubes. So I had to mix them. And that combo was 100% to my taste. The mid-range on that integrated amp, that little budget integrated amp, was so good, well, assuming you have easy to drive speakers, that I had to delay the launch of my flagship monoblocks that cost over 12 grand. I need to level up the mid-range of my flagship monoblock, because if my 1300-ish 4-watt budget amp can shine so good with these Cryotone and Ray tubes, in terms of mid-range, okay, obviously, I need to do better with my monoblocks. So, I know many of you watched this video hoping I would have the ultimate conclusion. Just buy X tube, they're the best of the best, and that's it. The real world does not work like that. It's a question of taste and system synergy. Some of you might even prefer the Horizon way over the Ray tubes, okay? But hopefully it will give you an idea of how good these tubes are relative to the legendary Newell stock. Also, I want to set the correct expectation. Even if you're new to this hobby, you should be able to hear the differences between the Horizon tubes and the three other tubes that I'll talk about today. To consistently identify the correct tubes out of the three tubes, Ray, Mullard, and Cryotone, now that's a different story. In a blind test, it's not that easy. You might need 10 years of training in the mountains of Audioland for that. So, regardless, if there's one thing to take away from this video, is that some tubes today are as good as Newell stock. Alright, I'll see you guys later.